I never imagined my brother would choose our father's memorial dinner to throw me out of the family business. Looking back, the insult from Gavin wasn't what ended 12 years of pretending we were equal. It was the smug smile on his face as the rest of the table stayed silent. The Oak Ridge Country Club was warm and lavish that evening, smelling of expensive steaks, red wine, and perfume. Outside, the rain was pouring over the golf course, but inside, my older brother Gavin was basking in the spotlight. He wore a tailored suit, a Rolex on his wrist, and sat next to his wife, Sienna, who was dripping in diamonds. I sat at the other end of the long mahogany table, wearing my only clean blazer, my hands still rough and calloused from working the engine blocks at our restoration shop. "To our father, Arthur," Gavin announced, raising his crystal glass. "The man who taught us that the Cole name stands for success and high-end automotive design." The table clapped. Gavin looked down the length of the table, his eyes landing on me. "Of course," Gavin continued, his voice carrying a mocking edge, "some of us chose to build the business and secure the corporate clients, and some of us chose to stay in the grease. Caleb here still runs that little engine rebuilding outfit in the back barn, clearing dirt for actual designers like Croft and Cole. But hey, somebody has to handle the wrench, right?" Sienna let out a sharp, condescending chuckle. "Well, at least he doesn't have to worry about a dress code at work." A few family members laughed quietly, looking away from me. My mother, Evelyn, simply smiled and patted Gavin's hand. I looked at my father's empty chair. He had spent 40 years as a master mechanic, starting in the grease just like me. My mother looked at me, then at Gavin, but she didn't say a word to defend me. "Caleb," Gavin said, leaning forward, "if you ever need a real job, my site supervisor is looking for someone to run the parts counter. $60,000 a year, and we'll even supply the blue uniform." I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my glass to toast him back. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out a thick black envelope, and walked up the table. I set it gently next to Gavin's plate. "Happy Memorial Dinner, Mom," I said quietly to my mother. Then I looked at Gavin. "You should check that file before the banks open tomorrow, Gavin. You might find it has a lot to do with your project." I turned, walked out of the dining room, and left the country club. Behind me, I could hear Sienna scoffing. "So dramatic. He probably left us a bill for clearing the garage." Gavin had built his entire reputation as a luxury car restorer on a lie. He wanted the world to believe he was an automotive genius, running Cole Customs. He drove the Porsche, lived in the mansion, and looked down on my engine shop, Vanguard Tuning, because my boots were covered in oil. What Gavin didn't know was that his massive new project along the Scioto River, a custom truck fabrication contract for a major shipping company, was on the verge of absolute collapse. 3 months prior, Gavin's primary engine supplier had abruptly walked off the contract after discovering a massive, undocumented design flaw in the vehicle frames. Without those custom engines, Gavin couldn't complete the order, run the road tests, or secure the final payment. His loans were accruing interest at $50,000 a week, and the bank was threatening to foreclose on the entire shop. Desperate, Gavin's project manager had reached out to a heavy-duty engine group called Vanguard Tuning. They were the only outfit in the state with the custom fabrication tools and the engineering team capable of redesigning those engine mounts in time. Gavin had begged Vanguard to take the job, signing a subcontract agreement that gave Vanguard full authority over the site's progress, along with a massive financial penalty if Croft and Cole defaulted on payments. But Gavin had never met the owner of Vanguard Tuning. He had only dealt with the regional manager, Richard Lawson. He didn't know that Vanguard Tuning was the parent company of Cole Restoration. And he had no idea that I had bought out Vanguard 2 years ago using the profits from my municipal utility contracts. I was the majority shareholder. I was the one who signed the approval for his project's clearance. While Gavin was mocking my grease monkey outfit in front of our parents, his entire company's survival was hanging by a thread that was held firmly in my dirty hands. The envelope I left on his plate contained the official corporate disclosure of Vanguard's ownership, along with a formal notice of contract suspension due to non-payment of the initial mobilization fee, a fee Gavin had tried to delay to cover his personal yacht lease. The next morning, the Scioto River site was silent. Normally, by 7 a.m., the roar of the massive Vanguard engines and the steady testing of the custom trucks would echo across the valley. But that morning, the gates were locked. The yellow vehicles sat motionless in the mud, their keys removed. I was sitting in my truck at the entrance, drinking my coffee, when Gavin's Porsche came sliding through the gravel driveway, kicking up mud. Gavin climbed out, his tailored suit trousers getting instantly ruined by the wet clay. He ran toward my truck, his phone pressed to his ear. Behind him came his site supervisor, looking panicked. "Caleb," Gavin yelled, pounding on my window. "What the hell is going on? Why are your machines sitting idle? We're losing $50,000 a day." I rolled down the window, taking a slow sip of coffee. "Morning, Gavin. I thought you said I was just a grease monkey who didn't belong at your table." "Don't play games with me, Caleb," Gavin screamed. I called Vanguard's office, and they told me the stoppage order came directly from the owner. Who the hell is the owner? Why aren't they answering my calls? I reached into my glove compartment, pulled out the duplicate Vanguard ownership certificate, and handed it to him. Gavin took the paper, his eyes scanning the lines. I watched his face go through a transformation. First confusion, then denial, and finally, a deep, sickening realization as he saw my signature next to the title of Managing Director, Vanguard Tuning. "You?" Gavin whispered, his voice cracking. "Vanguard is you?" "I bought Vanguard 2 years ago, Gavin," I said, my voice steady. "The company you've been bragging about, the one you said was too prestigious for someone like me, is financed by the grease I clean. And since you failed to pay the mobilization deposit on the engine clearance, I've suspended the contract." "Caleb, please." Gavin's site supervisor stepped forward, his hands shaking. "If we don't clear that block by Friday, the bank is going to pull the funding. Croft and Cole will go bankrupt." "Then I suggest Gavin starts wrenching," I said, rolling up my window. For the next 3 days, my phone was flooded with calls. My mother called, crying about how I was trying to ruin Gavin's life. My father's old friends called, their voices quiet, asking if we could work something out for the family. Even Sienna called, her snobbish tone replaced by a desperate, hurried sweetness. "Caleb, we're family. We shouldn't let business get in the way of our relationship. Gavin is sorry about the toast. Let's just get the engines back to work." "Sienna," I told her, "when Gavin called me grease monkey in front of the entire family, none of you said a word. You laughed. You thought my work was beneath you. Well, my machines are currently beneath your project, and they're staying off." On Friday afternoon, the bank officially pulled the construction loan for the Pinnacle. Without the engine works completed, the project was deemed a total loss. Croft and Cole defaulted on its obligations. Within a month, the firm was forced into restructuring. The Porsche was repossessed. The DC penthouse was sold at auction. Sienna filed for divorce, taking what remained of her family's trust and moving back to Chicago, leaving Gavin with nothing but a mountain of debt and a tarnished name. At the final liquidation hearing, Gavin sat across the table from me, looking small and defeated. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by a simple off-the-rack blazer. "You destroyed me, Caleb," he muttered, not looking me in the eye. "No, Gavin," I said, sliding the final acquisition agreement across the table. "You destroyed yourself. You built your success on the belief that you could look down on the people who did the actual work." I just let the grease settle. The agreement I handed him was a buyout. Vanguard purchased the Scioto River land from the bank for a fraction of its value, along with the remnants of Croft and Cole's development rights. I took over the entire project. The transition of the shop was completed within 6 months. I brought in a professional management team, restructured the bad vendor contracts, and updated the reservation systems. The garage began turning a profit for the first time in 5 years. My mother, Evelyn, remained in the family estate, but she lived quietly. Every Sunday evening, she would walk down to the garage, watching me work on the engine blocks. She didn't apologize for the eviction notice, but she would sit on the wooden stool, quietly watching the wood shavings fall. One evening, she stood up and touched the surface of a finished engine block. "Your father would have loved this, Caleb," she said, her voice cracking. "I know, Mother," I said, not looking up from my work. "He was the one who taught me how to find the stroke." Gavin had to relocate to a small apartment in Toledo, working as a junior parts counter clerk for a commercial firm. He was finally doing the basic paperwork he had once claimed was beneath him. Our mother occasionally tried to bring us together for family dinners, but I maintained my boundaries. I didn't hate Gavin, and I didn't wish him harm. But I had learned that you cannot share a table with people who only value you when they need your wrench. One evening, after we had finished the engine work and laid the foundations for the first 10 trucks, I stood on the hill overlooking the valley. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the heavy machinery and the newly cleared roads. My site supervisor walked up, holding a set of keys. "The first truck is framed, Caleb. We're ready for the buyers." "Let's get it done, Thomas," I said, taking the keys. 2 years later, Cole Restoration was named the premier custom truck builder in Central Ohio. We had built 80 beautiful, custom-designed trucks, all framed by the natural wood and steel we had cleared. The project was a massive success, but more importantly, it had been built with respect for the crew, the operators, and the craftsmen who put their sweat into the soil. Sometimes, the people I meet in business ask me why I still wear work boots and high-vis vests to the office. They think it's a gimmick or a style choice. I tell them it's a reminder. A reminder that the strongest buildings are the ones built by the people who aren't afraid of the mud. My brother Gavin had built his life on the roof, looking down on the foundation. And when the wind blew, his house collapsed. I had spent my life in the foundation, making sure the roots were deep. I stood at the entrance of the valley as the work crew loaded the last truck onto the trailer, the dust settling in the evening light. I felt a quiet, absolute satisfaction. If this story reminded you that the hardest workers deserve the most respect, leave the word foundation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on our next journey.